Today we explore the dark thoughts of two evil people who looked normal. So get your snacks ready, sit back, and let's enter a terrifying true story. It was past midnight in Seoul when a man walked into the rain, jacket pulled up tight, in an area filled with fancy apartment buildings that sparkled like diamonds. He walked toward a house that looked perfect and expensive. Inside, everything was peaceful and warm. An older couple, rich and successful, had no idea what was coming as they prepared to sleep. They did not hear when their front door opened. Minutes later, their peaceful life ended in violence and death. And that is how South Korea's deadliest serial killer started a killing spree that would terrify the whole country for months. His name was Yoo Young-chul, and the terrible things he did over the next 10 months were so awful that even experienced police officers could not sleep well after learning what happened. Yoo was not always a killer. He was born as an unwanted child on April 18, 1970 in Gochang County, South Korea. His family had almost no money. His father abandoned them early. His mother clearly did not want to raise him, and his grandmother took care of him. They stayed in a broken old house where cold air came through cracks in the walls and meals were usually just plain rice. Yoo was quiet and acted differently than other children. Kids at school made fun of him, and his teachers said he was lazy. He rarely talked to anyone, but he noticed everything. He noticed how children from wealthy families received praise. He noticed how people with money never had to struggle. And he noticed how his own family was ignored. These feelings stayed inside him forever. He began stealing when he was very young. First food, then clothing, then cash. By 18, he already had a criminal history. Theft, breaking into homes and creating fake documents. He spent most of his 20s going between youth jail and adult prison. But being locked up did not make him afraid. Instead, it showed him how to lie better, how to trick people, and how to hide his anger. In 1993, he got married. His wife worked giving massages, and for some time he attempted to have a regular life. They had a baby boy, but this family life fell apart quickly. In 2000, Yoo was found guilty of attacking a teenage girl. He returned to prison for several years. When they finally released him, his wife had divorced him. His son refused to talk to him, and his normal life was completely destroyed. While in prison, he learned about another killer named Jong Do-yong, who killed wealthy families in their homes. This fascinated him deeply. The way Jong secretly entered rich people's houses and murdered them. He thought, I could do that too. I could be even better. So when he left prison in September 2003, he did not try to fix his life. Instead, he started hunting for victims. The first murders were violent and well-planned. September 24th, 2003, a rich married couple living in an expensive neighborhood. Yoo broke into their home carrying a hammer and beat them both to death. He made it appear like a robbery, but he barely took anything. The crime looked confusing to police, but not scary enough to create public fear. 2 weeks passed and it happened again. 3 victims, another expensive house, no broken locks. Victims beaten with their heads crushed, nothing important stolen. During the next 6 weeks, he murdered 6 more people using the exact same method. Rich people, older couples, beaten to death, usually while they slept in their own beds. Police investigators had no clues. The crimes did not match normal robbery patterns, but they also did not seem like serial killer behavior. And Yoo was extremely careful with every detail. He always wore gloves. He changed into different clothes after each crime. He escaped through back doors or climbed out windows, and he watched television news every night to check if police suspected him. They did not. But then something changed. In December, Yu began dating a new girlfriend. She was young, attractive, and worked at a massage business. For a short moment, Yu thought maybe he could start over. But when she learned about his criminal background and that he had no money, she ended their relationship immediately. That rejection hurt him deeply, and it changed something inside his mind. Yu decided to stop killing rich people. Now he planned to murder women instead, specifically sex workers. He claimed it was to clean up society and punish them for being immoral. But that was false. The truth was simple. He hated these women because one of them had rejected him. He rented a very small apartment in Western Seoul and transformed it into a killing place. He would telephone massage companies, request a private appointment, and wait for the woman to arrive. When she entered through the doorway, Yu acted completely charming, always smiling and being polite. He would give her something to drink and make friendly conversation. Then when she turned her back, he would suddenly hit her hard in the head using a hammer. He murdered them very quickly. Then he cut their bodies into pieces in his bathroom using sharp saws and knives. He kept the water running to hide any sounds. He wrapped the body parts into plastic bags. Sometimes he cooked the human flesh to prevent bad smells. Other times he threw the remains in distant mountain areas or empty construction locations. Between March and July 2004, Yu killed at least 11 women using this horrible method, possibly even more. The killings became more frequent. In July, he killed 2 different women in less than 7 days. He seemed unstoppable, but he was also starting to make careless mistakes. Multiple massage businesses began noticing that their employees were vanishing after going to appointments in the same location. A few women who survived even described a strange man who made them feel uncomfortable. He was too silent, too cold. On July 15, 2004, one business owner created a trap. He sent 2 employees to Yu's apartment with a secret plan to contact police if anything dangerous happened. The moment one woman walked into the building and felt something was wrong, she escaped. Police officers arrived minutes later and discovered Yu standing calmly in the hallway, looking surprised but not panicked. At the police station, he refused to speak for many hours. Then suddenly, he asked for a cigarette. When the officer gave him one, Yu said something shocking. "I have killed 20 people." Officers thought he was lying until he explained exactly where all the bodies were hidden. He took investigators to mountains, to rivers, to public parks where human bones were buried inside garbage bags and shallow graves. He explained every single murder with complete details. Names, specific dates, and what tools he used. At his trial in court, Yu smiled inappropriately. When victims' family members cried and screamed, he just stared with blank, empty eyes. One time, when an angry man tried to attack him in the courtroom, Yu actually laughed out loud. He confessed to everything without holding back. He stated he had no guilt or regrets. When the judge asked him why he committed these murders, he simply answered, "Because I hated those people." He received a death sentence in June 2005. But in South Korea, the government has not executed anyone since 1997. So Yu remains locked in solitary confinement today, with his execution delayed forever. He spends every day alone in a tiny prison cell being monitored constantly. His terrible story became huge in the media. News programs repeated his confession videos constantly. Documentary films analyzed his criminal mind. A famous movie called The Chaser was loosely inspired by his crimes. Even years afterward, his name still creates fear in the nation's memory. But the most frightening part is that he never appeared to be a dangerous monster. Not until it was too late. There exist photographs of Yu from the early 2000s, dressed in a normal jacket, looking like any regular man you might see on public transportation. Nobody suspected the quiet neighbor was inviting innocent people to their deaths, with nothing except a friendly smile and convincing lies. He did not follow his victims through dark streets. He welcomed them inside politely, and they never walked back out alive. In total, he admitted to murdering 26 people. Police could only confirm 20 deaths, but some investigators believe the actual number is much higher. Today, Yu Young-chul stays as one of the most frightening criminals in South Korea's entire history. Not just because of what he did, but because of how easily he did it, how calmly he confessed everything, and how carefully he planned his violence. It is not the blood or the total number of victims that haunts people's minds most. It is the terrifying thought that someone exactly like him could be standing right behind you while waiting in line, appearing friendly and silent, making plans to kill, and you would never realize anything until it is far too late to escape. While Yu Young-chul terrified South Korea in the early 2000s, French-born serial killer Patrick Shaw had already horrified authorities 10 years earlier with his disgusting House of Horrors murders. It was the type of building most people would walk past without noticing. Collapsed roof, shattered windows, wild plants growing up the walls. Inside, the air felt thick with mold, dust, and something unexplainable that seemed to stick to your skin. And hidden underneath all that decay was a scene so disgusting that even experienced officers felt sick. On one wall, written in crude black paint, "Death Room." Below those words lay what used to be a living woman, now brutally murdered and destroyed. Her body was positioned like twisted artwork. Investigators didn't realize it yet, but they had just discovered the sick mind of Patrick Shaw, a man with no home, no verifiable past, and no trace of human conscience. Patrick Joseph Max Shaw was born into complete silence in 1966. Abandoned at a French orphanage days after birth with no explanation. From the beginning, something about him was different. He didn't play with other kids. He simply watched. While other children created friendships, he created habits. Lying, stealing, manipulating. He would cry when he wanted something, laugh when others felt pain, and show no expression when punished. By 16, he was gone from the system. He bounced between odd jobs, homeless shelters, and train stations. Patrick was like a ghost. In the early 1990s, he drifted into Italy, surviving on charity and manipulation. He possessed a weathered charm, with eyes that seemed to look straight through a person. People gave him food, offered rides, gave their trust. They always regretted it. By 1995, he was homeless along the Ligurian coast. That's where he met Ingrid Neuber, a German woman also struggling. She was soft-spoken, shy, completely worn down. They traveled together, sleeping in alleyways and abandoned houses. Patrick made her feel protected. That was his gift. They found an old crumbling house in Cuneo, tucked away off a dirt road. Dark, damaged, smelling of mold. But to them, it represented shelter. They stayed there for several days until one night when everything changed. He waited until she fell asleep. Then very quietly, he picked up a rusty wrench and brought it crashing down on her skull. She moved once, then stopped. He hit her again and again until her face was unrecognizable. He dragged her body across the room, removed her clothing, and began mutilating her corpse with terrifying calmness. He cut off her breasts and placed them over her eyes. He sliced deep into her torso, opening her body like a butcher cutting meat. Using black paint, he wrote "Death Room" on the wall above her. Then he simply walked away. Weeks later, a hiker smelled something terrible and pushed through the broken door. Police were stunned. No suspect, no motive, no fingerprint. Patrick had already moved north, blending in with other homeless populations. That's where he encountered Nadia Boccarino, 42, recently displaced and vulnerable. He played the same game: fake sympathy, manufactured charm, promises of protection. She followed him trustingly, and just like before, it ended in horrific violence. He took Nadia to an open sandpit near an industrial site. He struck her in the head, dragged her into the dirt, and broke her spine in two. He tore into her abdomen, left her body exposed, then buried her in shallow sand, almost as if he wanted someone to discover her. And someone did. A cyclist noticed the wind had shifted the sand. A single breast was sticking out, sunburned, misshapen, grotesque. Police found the rest of her body, badly rotting, dismembered, face unrecognizable. Witnesses reported seeing Nadia with a strange man, tall, thin, with sharp cheekbones and dead eyes. Within days, they identified Patrick. He was arrested and charged with Ingrid's murder. At his trial, he sat perfectly still, barely blinking. When the prosecutor read the horrific details, he appeared completely bored. He received 26 years for Ingrid's murder, plus 2 years for hiding Nadia's corpse. In Porto Azzurro prison, guards kept him isolated. He rarely spoke. He drew strange diagrams constantly, distorted faces, twisted limbs. Eventually, officials gave him a cellmate, Alberto Colasma, a criminal who talked too much. It was a fatal mismatch. One morning in 2005, guards opened the cell door and froze. Blood splattered everywhere. Patrick sat cross-legged on the floor, hands covered in blood, smiling faintly. On the walls, painted in fresh blood, were crosses, mysterious numbers and symbols nobody could decipher. Patrick never explained. Later, he simply said Alberto talked too much. Another trial, another sentence, another psychiatric facility. Then, in 2007, he wrote a letter to the prosecutor confessing to all 3 murders: Ingrid, Nadia, and Alberto. He said he felt no regret, that each person was destined to die, that he had freed them from suffering. He called himself a tool sent to fix society's problems. Despite this confession, he couldn't be recharged for Nadia's murder. His existing sentence already covered that crime. Justice has its limits, and Patrick understood them perfectly. For the next 15 years, he disappeared from public view in a psychiatric institute. Isolated, silent, watching people with those same glassy, emotionless eyes. The disturbing drawings never stopped. Page after page of distorted human forms, bodies with missing limbs, gaping mouths, women without eyes. Then, on the night of March 25th, 2022, it all ended. At 3:17 a.m., night shift staff checked on him. He hadn't moved. They called his name. No response. When they touched his arm, it felt cold. Patrick Joseph Max Shaw died just as quietly as he had lived. He was 56 years old. He was buried in a municipal grave paid for by the city. No funeral, no priest, no gravestone, just an identification number and a hole in the ground. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed the content, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want to support us even more, consider becoming a channel member. It means a lot. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.